The Watership Down podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is scripted, recorded, edited and narrated by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down podcast episode 125, which is being recorded on a walk outdoors, in which we're looking at season 1, episode 3 of the TV series and episode 3 of the series overall, The Easy Life. First, though, a bit of borough keeping. Can I remind you again about our appeal to raise funds for the Rabbit Welfare Association and Fund via justgiving.com, the link to which will be in the notes, or just search justgiving.com under my name, Newell Fisher. Next, the YouTube channel that has all the radio play versions of Watership Down and now includes the 2002 and 2016 BBC versions is now called the Lapine Radio Play Archive. Check it out if you haven't already, link in the notes. Next, I've had an email from Owlsler member Eric Steps about his recent trip to England. Quote, "Hello Newell, I'm back from my vacation to England and also from my visit of Watership Down. If you want, I can give you a detailed account of what I saw and how it all went. I can say this much, it was a huge success. I could see every location of the book, with the exception of the bridges over the River Test, because they're on heavily secluded land and are not even reachable from the street. One thing was a bit strange, which I hope someone can help me with, maybe, if you tell about it in the next podcast. I also wanted to go to the grave of Richard Adams in Whitchurch, but it was gone. On the spot was some freshly new earth and clay, but no grave. Maybe someone knows what happened. Best regards, Eric." End quote. Thank you for that, Eric. I've asked him for a full account, which I'd be delighted to include on a future episode. If anyone can answer his question about Richard Adams' grave, please let me know. Lastly, just another reminder that I am now showcasing Watership Down fan art by posting any that is submitted as the podcast title image on YouTube and posting the art on the podcast Instagram feed, with no podcast title getting in the way. All, of course, with full credit given. I'm not actively canvassing for contributions, so if you want to showcase your Watership Down themed art, or know of someone else's art you think should be, please get in touch with me either by social media or by emailing me at the Watership Down podcast, all one word, at outlook.com. Anyway, what's all this about another Warren nearby? Season 1, Episode 3, The Easy Life. The third episode of the Watership Down TV series was first broadcast in the UK on the 12th of October 1999. It was written by Mary Crawford and Alan Templeton. There will be a link to the full episode on YouTube in the notes. The episode begins with brief establishing shots of the Down. Underground, in the seemingly complete honeycomb, an exhausted Holly is having a nightmare that basically repeats the opening scene of last week's episode as he evades an owl in a wood, only this time the scene has a red tint. As he dreams, Holly repeats a phrase which I think is "not safe." As his distress grows, he is woken by Fiver, who tells him he is safe on Watership Down. Holly says they have to go back for Pimpernel. Fiver says only when he is better. In chapter 21 of the original novel, For Ella Crowrard to Cry, Pimpernel, who made it out of the destruction of Sandalford Warren along with Holly, Toadflax and Bluebell, is killed by the rabbits of the Warren of the Snares when they surprise the escapees. Just the mention of knowing Hazel, Bigwig and Fiver, who have already encountered this Warren, is sufficient to provoke such an attack. Holly and Bluebell get away, Toadflax having died earlier before they crossed the River Emborne. In this version of Watership Down, at the end of episode 2, we learn from Holly that he left Pimpernel at another Warren, where he is apparently safe. But now he has had a nightmare that seems to have made him think otherwise. Why did he leave Pimpernel at this other Warren? Did Pimpernel just decide to stay there, seduced by the easy life? Evidently Holly felt he had to carry on, though his motivation for wanting to find the rabbits who first left Sandalford is not explained in this version. Back above ground, Blackberry is digging, and no one else. Hazel says to Bigwig he cannot believe Sandalford is gone. Bigwig and Hazel fill in some of the gaps caused by Sandalford not featuring in this series by saying that they have Hazel and Fiver, as well as Fiver's vision, to thank for having left in time. Fiver interrupts them to say that Holly wants to go back for Pimpernel. Bigwig is impressed with the former captain of Owlsler, but Hazel wonders why if he is safe at another Warren. Bigwig says where Pimpernel is probably safer than Watership Down, which he calls a forsaken place. Fiver firmly disagrees, saying that Watership Down is the only safe place. Bigwig proposes going to find Pimpernel and having a look at this other warren. Hazel asks if he is just trying to get out of digging. Meanwhile, Blackberry, the only doe, is demonstrating excellent digging technique to Hawkbit, Dandelion and Pipkin. She volunteers Hawkbit to have the first go, who manages to make a hash of it, annoying Keehar, who is resting nearby, and hitting Hazel with a clod of earth as he arrives to tell them of their plans. The whole digging class is keen to go for some reason, but Hazel says only he, Fiver and Bigwig are going. This is a new warren with new ideas, and Blackberry needs their help digging. Hawkbit says he hates new ideas. Even Pipkin looks angry. As the expedition sets off, Holly runs after them and insists he is coming along as well. Hazel is worried that he is not well enough, but Bigwig disagrees, reminding him that Holly is Owsler. Holly asks who is in charge, causing an awkward moment for Bigwig, after which they set off with Holly. We see them cross a field with a horse in it, Fiver alarming the horse by running under its legs, and then they enter a wood. Holly says the warren is at the far side of this wood, and that a rabbit called Cowslip seems to be in charge. Bigwig says he's either in charge or he isn't. In a moment seemingly designed for adult viewers, Holly says pointedly you would think so. He also adds that you have never seen a healthier, sleeker bunch of rabbits, so Hazel says there is little chance of them wanting to join them on Watership Down. Bigwig says perhaps they should be joining the rabbits in this warren instead. He is clearly angling for leaving Watership Down. Is this just because of having to dig a warren more or less from scratch? In any case, the Bigwig of this series is, in my opinion, a far less impressive character than the original. He seems at this point to be more about pride and glory in being a member of the Owsler than about the actual realities of what an Owsler member is expected to do, including digging burrows if it is necessary for survival. But digging is obviously not nearly glorious enough for this Bigwig. On their way to the new warren, Fiver says to Holly that something obviously bothers him about Cowslip. Holly says he never said that, but Hazel points out that with Fiver you don't have to. Holly admits that Cowslip, and in fact all the rabbits in this warren, seem a bit off. Fiver adds, as if they are lost. Holly agrees. Hazel asks Fiver if something is wrong. Fiver says he isn't sure. And now we see a shot of two rabbits at Silflay. One of these, a light yellow rabbit, is Cowslip. The other is Strawberry, and this is his first portrayal on film. Cowslip's appearance is, how can I put this, decadent. It implies a well-groomed human male with stylised facial hair who doesn't have to work very hard for a living. They are eating flayrah, and the camera pans to the Watership Down rabbits, who comment about the size of their burrow entrances, which are far too large to be concealed. Holly names the two rabbits we have just seen, and says they said they would take care of Pimpernel. Bearing in mind that in the novel Strawberry condemned Pimpernel's death at the hands of the mob led by Cowslip, we are already in very different territory here. Fiver takes an instant dislike to the place, but Holly disagrees, saying these rabbits have a life here. And then it starts to rain, which settles their next move as they make their way towards the strange warren. Immediately, Cowslip and Strawberry start dancing around the three rabbits as Stephen Fry, who voices Cowslip, and Robert Harper, who voices Strawberry, recite a poem of welcome. Harper can be spotted playing a reporter in the film Black Pond 2011. Strange magical sounds play in the background, and Hazel asks Holly what's wrong with them. Apparently it's a thing that they do. Holly says they have come for Pimpernel, and Cowslip invites them inside, still waxing poetic, this time about the rain. Hazel has to push Fiver through the entrance to the run, as he tells him he thinks they are harmless. Fiver does not look happy at all. He says to Hazel that there is a winter here, a cold that never dies. Hazel says it smells fine, and Fiver is just tired and will feel better in the morning, but Fiver feels like dawn is a long way away. We find ourselves in a large burrow with tree roots in the ceiling. In the novel this was of course the inspiration for the honeycomb on Watership Down, but not here. Fiver, still being pushed by Hazel, comments on the eyes of the rabbits in the burrow. He says they look far away, and they are indeed very creepy. But all Hazel sees is healthy, well-groomed rabbits. Are we seeing them through Fiver's eyes? He asks Fiver what is wrong with him. Fiver backs up against the burrow wall as the other three comment on how spacious and healthy this place seems. There would be room for them to move in here. Bigwig says they must eat like Ella-Ra, a contraction of Ella-Ra for this children's series that it pains me to say. Strawberry interrupts to say that they do indeed. He offers to show Hazel around the rest of the warren. Hazel looks back at the scared and cowering Fiver before following Strawberry. Bigwig asks Cowslip where Pimpernel is. He replies that the roots intertwine to hold the roof of the burrow up. As Bigwig tries to be polite, we see Cowslip, in a truly creepy moment, look around Bigwig directly at Fiver, whose eyes widen in fear in contrast to Cowslip's dead-looking, direct glare. Hazel and Strawberry arrive at a brick wall that Hazel says looks man-built. Strawberry confirms that it is, and that the builders found it pleasing. Then he shows Hazel a pattern of stones pressed into earth, the first portrayal on film of the shapes from the novel. When Hazel asks if it is another man thing, we see Strawberry's shadow rear up against the stones menacingly as he laughs at Hazel's question. Hazel cowers for a moment in fear. It is another very effective, creepy moment. Strawberry explains that the stones are LRR. When he mentions all those old stories and Hazel shows enthusiasm, he patronises him for still believing in all that, before smacking Hazel's paw when he tries to touch the shape, saying beauty is fragile. Hazel asks why they made it then. Because they have time. All the time in the world, and no need to worry about food or enemies. As Strawberry says this, he looks sad as he says they just have all the time in the world. It is about the only time we will sympathise with the Strawberry of this series. They move on, but Hazel takes one last look at the shape, an utterly alien thing for him. Seeing it actually visually portrayed for the first time, it might as well be a skeleton. There is the same mysterious magical sound as the camera zooms in on the shape and we cut to the rain outside. Back on Watership Down, a miserable-looking hawkbit and dandelion are sheltering from the rain in a barely dug scrape as they have not been digging enough, which is odd, as this episode opened in a clearly very spacious and well-dug honeycomb, a bit of a continuity error perhaps. Blackberry emerges from her well-dug burrow and allows herself some laughter at their expense as she reminds them that they said bucks don't dig. Dandelion says they are having a bit of a rethink as part of their minimal roof collapses, pouring water onto Hawkbit. Back at Cowslip's warren, Holly and Bigwig are enjoying some flayrah underground while listening to the rain outside in a dry burrow. Bigwig clearly wants to move into this warren. Cowslip, like a waiter, asks them if they can get anything. He could get them anything else, listing, among other things, mange tout in a speech that takes full advantage of Stephen Fry's posh voice. Bigwig says what a good idea it is keeping flayrah on hand underground, but wants to know where it all comes from. Cowslip promises he will find out tomorrow. There is something not quite right about the way he says this. As Cowslip leaves, Fiver eyes him suspiciously, then joins Bigwig and Cowslip to urge them to leave immediately. Bigwig thinks he is mad, but Fiver says the ceiling is made of bones, and with another of his rhyming visions, the hearts of the rabbits here are made of stones. Bigwig says he has had enough of him. Cowslip announces that they have an entertainment. The poet Silverweed will be performing. As the warren gathers, Hazel arrives back in the great burrow with Strawberry, who says he is in for a treat. And so, for the first time, Silverweed is portrayed on film, and very unsettling he is too. He is pale and thin with the widest staring eyes in the warren. He is voiced by Tim McInerney, who played Lord Percy and Captain Darling in Blackadder. The poem he recites, which we hear snatches of, is based loosely on the one recited in the novel, and is about asking Lord Frith to take him away. As Fiver listens, he is horrified, saying to Hazel that Silverweed smells like dead leaves in the autumn. As Silverweed reaches the climax of his poem, which is basically about wanting to die, he seems to be staring right at Fiver as the camera zooms in on his wide, dead eyes. Fiver's horror grows until he can bear it no longer. He cries, "Let me out, now," and runs for the exit, bumping into Strawberry on the way. Hazel apologises to Strawberry and goes after him. Fiver is cowering outside in the rain. He is joined by Hazel and Bigwig, and tells them there is sadness and evil in the warren. They leave him be, as Hazel says to Bigwig he won't stay out for long in this weather. Cut to next morning. The rain has gone and Fiver is asleep in the open. He is awoken by the growling of a fox as it approaches the warren, but immediately a man in the trees aims his gun and fires. The gunshot wakes Bigwig and Holly, who immediately smell fox and human. Cowslip says not to worry. The man has killed a fox for them. They are safe. Hazel realises Fiver is still outside and rushes to see if he is okay. Fiver tells him someone had to stand watch. There is evil all around. A disinterested Bigwig tells Hazel they are off to get some flayrah. Fiver asks if they can leave, but Hazel reminds him they haven't found Pimpernel yet. As Hazel goes to join Bigwig, Fiver says that Pimpernel is gone. Bigwig and Hazel are with Cowslip and Strawberry sorting out Flayral to take back to the Warren. Strawberry asks Bigwig what it is like where they live. Bigwig says it is not like this place. Strawberry strangely says they are lucky. Hazel asks Cowslip where the Flayral comes from. A far more serious Cowslip says man leaves it for them, then interrupts Hazel asking why, to say that he will forget the hard times after he has been with them for a while. As he speaks, he caresses a parsnip, caresses food, something he will shortly consume. Hazel tries to say they won't be there long, just long enough to find Pimpernel, but Cowslip interrupts to say long or short, one never knows. It is the closest he comes to a threat. Hazel takes a carrot to Fiver, saying there is plenty, but Fiver won't touch it. Bigwig mocks Fiver's psychic abilities in much the way he does in the 1978 film, only this Bigwig knows Fiver was right about Sandalford, which just makes him seem ignorant. Holly arrives to say he cannot find Pimpernel anywhere, and no one will say where he is. Hazel says Cowslip won't answer his questions either. Bigwig has had enough. He has been invited to stay here and intends to. He leaves them and runs through a bush. This series was aimed at children, so the scene that follows has little of the shock value of the 1978 film. After Bigwig cries out in a way that does not even hint at being strangled, they follow him to find him in a snare, his face terrified, begging Hazel to help him. But there is no blood, no froth. What there is a break in narrative that was clearly intended for an advertising break, after which we see Bigwig with thorns in the foreground, a mild indication of hazard, as he again begs Hazel to help him. Hazel sees the peg and the wire. He tries biting through it before telling Holly to go back to the Warren and get help. After a few moments of thinking, Fiver notices that the peg is like a carrot. Hazel immediately realises they have to dig it out. Back at the Warren, Holly finds Cowslip, Strawberry and another rabbit as they take Flavor underground. Assuming they will help, he tells them what has happened and runs back, then stops. They are not following him. He goes back and shouts angrily, asking if they heard him. Cowslip, seemingly to himself, says, "There is no Bigwig. There never was, and now he's gone." Then he repeats a strange, convulsive motion over and over. Holly says they are all mad, but Strawberry looks on sadly. Back at the snare, Hazel has got through as much of the peg as he can. The smaller Fiver takes over as Holly arrives back. Bigwig is lying still, but we cannot see his face, and there are no flies. Fiver gets through the peg, and Hazel takes it out of the ground, telling Bigwig he is free. He asks Holly where the others are. They wouldn't come. The dramatic music slows. Bigwig is still. Hazel realises he isn't breathing. Holly says they are too late. Fiver asks what they are going to do without him. Hazel says, "Oh Frith, my heart has joined the 1,000. My friends stopped running today." Fiver realises that the shining wires are everywhere, all around them. Cowslip knows this. They all do. Shockingly, they are joined by Strawberry, who says sadly that the man will come soon and take Bigwig away. An enraged Holly shouts at him, asking why he didn't come. He could have helped. A still partly deluded Strawberry says that the man feeds them and protects them from the fox and the badger. There is only one thing to fear. Fiver shudders and says that's why these rabbits dance and make shapes and poetry, to forget their fear and hide from the truth. For a children's animation, it is a profound moment. Human existential angst expressed in rabbit form. Fiver just cries as Hazel now confronts Strawberry, saying he knew about the wires and didn't warn them. Holly says that the wire got Pimpernel. It is barely a question. Strawberry says that when a rabbit is gone, they never speak his name. Hazel asks angrily why he didn't warn them. Strawberry sadly says that if the wire took them, they would live 1 day longer. Bigwig says he'll kill them all. He is alive, and apparently completely okay after being strangled to unconsciousness in the snare. They all celebrate as Bigwig says they are all alive, and they have a score to settle. In the 1978 film, but less so in the novel, Fiver is now in charge as he urges them to leave for the hills to the south, but not here. We are back at the Warren of the Snares, as we can now call it, as the 5 rabbits run at them, and Bigwig cries out in anger. Cowslip tells them to go away unless they want to fight. Bigwig squares up to him, saying they have forgotten all that Elerar taught them, as Cowslip smiles at him creepily. Pathetically, Cowslip tries to attack Bigwig and is thrown to one side. All the other rabbits run underground. Hazel advises Cowslip to leave this place. He needs the freedom of the hills and can relearn the stories of LRR. But Cowslip backs away into a burrow with a delusional rant about how LRR is a lie. The man looks after them. They don't want to leave. They don't want freedom as Hazel has defined it. Hazel says the shining wires will get him, that he doesn't have to surrender to them. But now a hysterical Cowslip insists the wires won't get him, maybe others but not him. And with an insane laugh, he is gone. At last they all realise the full horror of where they are. You'd have thought that the near strangulation of one of them would have done the trick, but it is the full insanity of Cowslip, capably portrayed by Stephen Fry, that finally does it. Hazel tells them all to run. Bigwig shouts to stay in the open and away from cover where the wires are. As they leave, a confused Strawberry looks after them, then back at his warren, then back towards them again. We hear Hazel's voice echoing in his mind, saying, "You don't have to surrender to the shining wire." Cut to a pair of human feet as a man looks down at the dugout snare. We see a hammer rise and strike a metal wedge with a loud clang as the peg of the snare is placed back in the ground. Now clear of the warren, the 4 rabbits take a breather. Bigwig admits that being Owsler means you can think you're right all the time. He says that he should have listened to Fiver. Holly adds that they all should have done. Fiver and Hazel smile generously. But now a rabbit heads towards them. It is of course Strawberry in a blind panic. He begs them to take him with them. Bigwig says he lies to them. Why should they? Hazel says they have to work hard to survive. Life in the hills is not easy. Strawberry says there is no life in, as he calls it, the warren of the shining wires. He begs desperately. Slowly all 4 rabbits nod. Hazel says he can come with them. Bigwig says, "Let's go home." Strawberry is safe. As they approach Watership Down at sunset, Keehar flies above them, crying out that he is all better now. Hazel comments that he can get his own worms in that case, but Keehar has had enough of worms. Some day he will return to the Peak Water and have fish again. He says he will beat them home. A smiling Strawberry repeats the word home as he runs towards Watership Down. They are greeted by a disgruntled digging party. Apparently Blackberry won't give them a moment's rest. Hazel laughs "Home Sweet Home" as they arrive back on Watership Down. Is it canon? This episode, which is roughly equivalent to chapters 12 to 14 and 16 to 17 in the novel, is one of the few in which the TV series tells the story of the novel in more detail than the 1978 film, in which there was no Strawberry, no Silverweed and no Shapes. And there are moments of genuine creepiness and fear here which are impressive for a children's animation. However, it is out of sequence from the original story, misses out the telling of the story of the King's Lettuce, and this cowslip is a bit more melodramatic than the original, though still quite effective. So while I would no means call the whole episode canon, the inclusion of the Shapes and Silverweed, as well as the portrayal of Strawberry in this particular episode, perhaps should be included, as this was their first portrayal on film. Next time, episode 4 of season 1, Strawberry Fair, in which Strawberry is lazy and there is a rumour of yet another warren nearby, named Ephrafa.